talk about, women doing all of these things and having no time for themselves, that's absolutely the truth. And so we really do have to carve out, some space, some time for ourselves. And therapy is very important because it's about you. It's about finding, what's going on, what's good, what you need to build on, what you need to work on. And I feel like one of the things that I do say, and so my second book is called Single Mom Empowerment. I wrote that as a single mother. I'm now happily married. I have a beautiful new life. I have three adult children, and I have a little baby. Me and my husband have a little baby. So and I would have never dreamt that. I would have never dreamt that that could have been my story. But really, when you kind of clean out those corners of your life, and you get fresh and kind of just walk on that path, sky's the limit, right? And I think it's so important because I always talk to women about preparing themselves for their life without the children, for their life when the children are adults, when they've moved on. And so what you said about therapy is really important because we're never thinking about, when our kids are grown and they're on their own, what's happening to us. We're pouring our entire selves into the children, into the husband, and forgetting that we are human and we're an individual. And how do you build that woman there? Because the better that you are, the better your children will be, the better your home will be, the better your life will be. So you have to save some for you. You can't be an empty vessel walking around. As the Jamaicans have a saying, an empty bag can't pan up. And it's true. Welcome to the Resilient Mother podcast. I am Catherine Tyson Sewell, your host for this episode, and I'm very excited to bring on Miss Crystal Washington. Welcome to the Resilient Mother podcast. How are you, Crystal?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for having me. And how are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Busy mom, busy wife, busy life, making it happen. But just, wanting to continue to bring amazing stories, amazing women like yourself to our audience to just help us all kind of kick butt together.
Yeah.
Because we can. And speaking of that, this is the Resilient I Can attitude theme for the month that we're in. And so, Crystal, you're up, and we are excited to talk to you about your Resilient I Can attitude. Now, I know you also have you utilize the name Resilient as well. So I thought that was very interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you do in your world?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Awesome question. So, yeah, I came up with that name about 4 years ago. It's called Resilient Woman 2.0. And that's just something that I received out of my prayer time and just looking around at my world and where I am as a woman today and how I've overcame so much. And so when I begin to share my story with other women, they're like, you're this age and you went through X, Y, and Z, and you just didn't make it out, but you're an overcomer. And then you're just bold about your story to just share it with women so that they can feel empowered. So it's a private platform page on Facebook. And a lot of us women, we get together and we talk about all things womanhood. We talk about motherhood, being a wife, like you said, working in corporate, starting your own business, being a stay-at-home mom, you name it. We talk about, abuse, rejection, low self-esteem, addictions and things like that, because I want to give the women a safe space where they can talk about it. I mean, it's just so many
Yeah.
things we as women, we can't even talk about with our spouses or our close family members because we want to be able to be safe and trust that when we do share it, that it will stay with the individual and
Yes.
somehow help us or encourage us or support us. So it's an
Yeah.
awesome community.
Yeah, so I'm a social worker by profession and I'm a counselor. So I do understand that that safe space. And I've come from a very vulnerable background myself, a product of a teenage mom. My mom had the three of us before she was 19.
Mm.
And I became a single mother myself at 26. And so, going that road on my own, definitely, I really appreciate spaces like what you're talking about, creating spaces like that for people, for women to feel safe, to be able to interact with other women, to see that it's not just you that's going through it. And sometimes your story is not even as bad as someone else's story, or not as tough as someone else's story, and to just get strength from each other, and just helps to catapult you to another level. So I really love that, everything you've said. I really, really love that. Now, are you able to share a little bit about some of your story? Just what started you on this path?
Oh wow. Ooh, okay, so like your mother, I was a teenage mom. I was raised in the church. My father was an evangelist. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. I was raised around all boys, so I had to be tough, and I really had to fight all my life. But that put a resilience in me, a
Uh-huh.
willingness,
Okay.
tenacity to get back up. And so when my father passed, I was 12 years old, and I started looking for love. I was looking for the love of a father and the
Yeah.
affirmations of a got into a relationship with a guy that was about 6 or 7 years older than I was, and I didn't know it at the time. But by the time I found out, I had already had my first sexual experience. Um, I went through a lot of
Okay.
rejection. The relationship did not last long. I got into another relationship with a drug dealer, and about 5 years older than me. And again, looking for the love of a father. You're looking for that affirmation and that covering. And soon after, I found that I was pregnant at the age of 15. So I didn't let
Okay.
else like a teenager would. First of all, I didn't know anything about being a mother. I was still a child. I went through
Right.
rejection in high school, but I was determined to keep my child. So I went through high school, graduated on time. I went to college. I went to did hair and cosmetology school. At the same time, I worked in a hair shop, and so just seeing that resilience. Fast forward. I joined the church because I had left church after when I was a teenager. Felt very guilty. Felt a
Right.
lot of and a lot of times, when I'm talking to women, especially women that are in ministry, and they may not go to a church that is mixed with a little grace. I was raised in holiness. So a lot of times, the
Yeah.
mixture of grace can be kind of scarce. And that's not to say about all
Yeah.
churches, talking about the ones I was part of. And so I felt a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. However, I
Yeah.
was determined that I was going to take care of me. And that was
Yes.
because you have to just get up and just keep going, just keep going. And I watched my mother take care of, raised four children without my father being there. And so fast
Right.
forward, I ended up going back to church. And by the time I was 19, I was pregnant with my second child. I was married by then. My first
Okay.
husband had a long-term illness. So I was a widow at 22. Didn't
Oh
know
my
what to.
God.
Yeah, and but I still had to continue to live, not just for myself now, but now I have two children.
Two children. Yes. Yes.
Press through.
Absolutely. I'm going to stop you. Let me stop you there really quick, because what I want to say is that what you said about the church is so important, and I want to say that right now because I think it's really important. I think, sometimes when we're a part of the church congregation, I think that the church doesn't realize how much impact they have on each other and how much shame they can kind of bring to us or bring us to. And I think that that's not what church is about. And so when you were talking, it kind of resonated with me too, because, getting married at 20, and by 26, I'm a single mother of three kids, and being a part of a church community and feeling just not covered, not protected, not embraced, kind of feeling like I'm on my own, and it should never have been that way. And I think that I always say God's people are going to have to answer to God for that sort of stuff. And so as you were saying it, I just wanted to interject right there because I think that is so important when you're a
Yeah.
part of a congregation. And for the women that are listening to us, that are watching this, and if you are major people in the church, like, go run, tell that, like, tell them, stop it, because that is not what that's about. And when Jesus was walking the earth, he was walking with all the people that were not Christians, and
Yeah.
the sinners and the thieves and the the adulterers and everybody, and he was not judging them, and he was not making people feel, you know what I mean? You without sin throw the first stone. And so I just had to stop you on that, because I just think that is so important. And I'm so glad that you went back, because I went back also. But we shouldn't have had to feel those feelings, because churches, should be that community, that safe space. So I think churches really have to start working on doing better, the ones that are failing in that way. And of course, they're just human, and we know that. But I'm sorry, I had to stop you just to say that. So
That I really like that. That's the whole reason why I do speak up about it, because it's like, you mentioned it. It's so many young women that are facing that still today, even after COVID.
absolutely.
It's just, honestly, it's ridiculous now. I mean, because
Yeah.
it's like, what Bible are you reading from? You
Right.
mentioned,
It's hello.
yeah, it's
Exactly.
so powerful about Jesus, and I want to
Yeah.
make emphasis on this. A lot of times you can join a ministry or a church or a community where if you do fall and you feel ashamed, or if you did something and you decided, you know what, this place is not for me.
Yeah.
Jesus never just cast people away and just
Right.
left them by the wayside.
Right.
When you're a good shepherd, the good shepherd left the 99 for the one.
Right.
And
Right.
searched for he found the one and put him on his shoulder and brought him
Right.
back into people, the safety, the place of love and community. And I feel like this is the hour where a lot of leaders have to understand, like, the sheep is like, no, no, we're getting the truth now. Like,
Yeah.
we're getting revelation now. We are all, but also we all need one another.
Well,
And
absolutely. And especially when you see situations where, the pastors are misbehaving, or like the elders, the men of God are misbehaving in the church, and behaving as if, you're so righteous. I think that's just really, really, you're missing the boat, and you are responsible for these sheep that have come into the fold looking for something, and here you go. You know what I mean? Now, I'll tell you, the church that I grew up as, I won't call the name of it, but the church that I grew up as, they used to have a ritual where they'd be reading people out. They'd have a read out, like, this is the Joe Smith, no longer a member. They just read the people out. And so as a little kid, you're like, oh, that seems shameful. So, like, that's just terrible. Like, come on. I don't know if they still do it, but it was one of those things where, you're kind of in this whole space of making sure that your behavior is about what people are seeing. Like, I have to pretend that they're not God, they're not Jesus, right? So I love that. I don't know, we're not here to preach, but it just felt like life, sometimes in life you have to preach. So, but yes, so creating the space that you created, I feel like those are ministries then, in
yeah,
some ways, right?
yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of fast forward a little bit, I what I do now is ministry. So I work for a funeral home, and
Okay.
we minister to the living, because a lot of people think that funeral homes are morbid and it's
Right.
creepy. Actually, what I do, I have the ministry of helps and ministry of advocacy. And so in that time, well, let me back up a little bit. When my first husband passed away, it was very hard for me. Like, my
Yes.
over the place. It was difficult because,
You were very young as well. You were
yeah,
22, you said. So that's
yeah,
very young.
yeah, he had separated from me before that even happened.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was just like a whole fiasco and everything. But even in that, I still kept my dignity, and I just put it in God's hand. And
Yeah.
years I still, and I have to say this for people, years even after, because he wasn't faithful to me the last 2 years of our relationship, I held resentment against him, and he was already gone. um I couldn't let it go, because I never got a thank you for taking care of him. I never got a I am so so sorry. And so I was just stuck, and I just became very cold and bitter, and I had
Yeah.
resentment towards him for that. But he's gone, and I'm living, and
Right.
requiring me to do as a woman and as a child of God. And I felt like I couldn't really help people the way God wanted me to. And so I
Right.
learned how to bring that to the foot of the cross and ask him to give
Right.
me, so that I
Yeah.
can own my own faults,
Because
right? And
you were carrying too much stuff on your back. So yeah, you were already kind of weighted down. Now it's so funny and how our stories are so similar because my first husband also passed away, and we had been separated almost 12 years when he did. And I had written a book at that point. I had written my first book, I'm Somebody's Mama, and it really was my journals about being a single mother. And I was telling all of the, all of the truth. And when he passed away, the opposite happened for me. That all of that pain that I felt and disappointment and stuff that I was holding on to for all those years was gone. It went with him. And so I
mm,
had to go back to the book and revise it because I felt like the three living children that we had that he left behind that were our children, they didn't need to see their father in such a negative light, because that book was, it was very truthful and it was real. But I went in and I said, no, they don't need that for their, for their father's legacy, right? He's gone now, so what is this going to serve? It was just
mm,
amazing how that happened, that it's just literally released. Like every piece of pain that I had, everything that he had done was gone. And I don't know, I can only say thank God, because it's bizarre how that happened. So hearing you kind of say the opposite, because it really is work that needs to happen, right? We need to be looking inside of ourselves and getting that stuff out of there, like dusting that out, get that broom, that mop, and sweeping it out. And in order for us to even receive all the beautiful things that life has, right? And so, these are the things that we want the women that are a part of your ministries or seeking these spaces or listening to us on this Resilient Mother podcast, that they can understand how important healing is, to be a good mother, to be a good partner again, to receive all of this beautiful goodness that life has. You can't fully really sit in it if you're kind of weighted down with
mhm,
a mess,
mm.
right? So I love that. And I'm so happy that you're on here, talking about that, because the bigger the drum is, the more noise we make. Maybe it'll resonate around the world.
Yeah. And I learned that. So, and I want to mention this. I am such a big fan of therapy. And I have to say that for the people, especially the women, the moms that are
Yeah.
in church. Honestly, every mom should be getting some therapy. You got one
Right.
child, you
Right.
need it, because it helps balance you out and give you
Yeah.
a voice.
It does. It does.
Because sometimes, let's just be on, our careers are on the back burner, the
Yeah.
things that hobbies, sometimes your load can become so heavy as a
Yeah.
mother, especially if
It's
you're,
true.
you
It's
just
true.
exist,
Yeah.
you turn
Yeah.
around. "Well, what do I like to do?" All of that
Yeah.
has, and I feel like when it comes to therapy, it kind of gives you that room to be acknowledged, acknowledge your feelings, because sometimes
Yeah.
when we express it to our spouse, they don't understand. Men never understand, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
therapy, and I would love to encourage every woman. They have programs where you can get free therapy, but
Absolutely. It doesn't
out,
have to cost you money. Exactly. Yes.
but
Yeah.
if you feel like this is something you want to do, it's worth the every penny. It's worth it. And
Right.
I
It
too
is.
was able to write my own life story. So we have so much in common, and
We
I
do. We do.
is a very raw, transparent book, because again, my focus is to help someone. And how can you reach someone if you're not willing to be authentic and open
Right.
about the ugly, your mistakes, why you
Right.
kept to it, why you kept accepting it? You
Right.
have to all. And I call it it's not the title of my story, but I call my life the beautiful, and I appreciate God for all of it. But my book is called From Tragedy from Triumph, and it's on Amazon. It's on a
I
lot
love
of our
that.
California. I'm with you, sis. I
From
cannot wait.
tragedy to
Book,
triumph.
I wrote it down.
I love that. From tragedy to triumph.
Try.
I love tragedy to triumph. Yes. So you wrote mine down. I'm going to write yours down. And, we probably need to collaborate in the future. It's funny because Tiffany, we always say that the women that we meet on these podcasts are like, where you guys have been our whole life. We love you. It's such a great space really to just bring all of these wonderful women like yourself that come on and tell these stories and talk about the amazing things that they're doing in their worlds. Because the more that we're doing in the different parts of our world, the more women that we're helping as we help ourselves, the better the world is going to be. Because literally, the hand that rocks the cradle does rule the world. Like, seriously. And you're not joking when you talk about women doing all of these things and having no time for themselves. That's absolutely the truth. And so we really do have to carve out some space, some time for ourselves. And therapy is very important because it's about you. It's about finding what's going on, what's good, what you need to build on, what you need to work on. And I feel like one of the things that I do say, and so my second book is called Single Mama, Powerful, Not Pitiful. And I wrote that as a single mother. I'm now happily married. I have a beautiful new life. I have three adult children, and I have a little baby. Me and my husband have a little baby. So and I would have never dreamt that. I would have never dreamt that could have been my story. But really, when you kind of clean out those corners of your life, and you get fresh and kind of just walk on that path, sky's the limit, right? And I think it's so important because I always talk to women about preparing themselves for their life without the children, for their life when the children are adults, when they've moved on. And so what you said about therapy is really important because we're never thinking about, when our kids are grown and they're on their own, what's happening to us. We're pouring our entire selves into the children, into the husband, and forgetting that we are human and we're an individual. And how do you build that woman there? Because the better that you are, the better your children will be, the better your home will be, the better your life will be. So you have to save some for you. You can't be an empty vessel walking around. As the Jamaicans have a saying, an empty bag can't turn up. And it's true. Empty bag can't turn up. And I know there might be some Jamaican ladies saying, she's saying it wrong. I'm married to a Jamaican, so forgive me. But I think it's close to it. An empty bag cannot turn up. And so, we got to be filled. And we have to do the filling. We can't expect people to fill us. Our children are not going to fill us. Our
Mm-hmm.
husband is not going to fill us. And I talk about husbands all the time. Men, they're so basic. They want to eat. They want to work. They want
And else. But I honestly, oh God, I'm like, okay, are we just like, are we twins? We don't know it. But my husband today, I did get remarried, and honestly, I got remarried, and I didn't even do the work. So
wow.
I'm been
Lucky
married for
you.
yeah, but I'm telling you, I was a mess.
Yeah.
But I have so much grace. And I call him my Moses because Moses
Oh,
wasn't Moses or Abraham that was meek, but
that was
he was. But he taught me how to take time for myself, and he showed
nice.
and allowed me to speak to him about the things that I went through growing up and in my first marriage. And what I loved about him is that he's a man of prayer and a man of the word.
That's
Um,
awesome.
I was with my first husband, and I talked about this in my book. In a way, he was a Bible thumper. So if it was very manipulating, if he wanted me to do something, and I'm just like, I'm tired. I've been washed so many clothes. I'm watching the children. I'm feeding the dog. I got to go get prescription medicine. Like, he was just that sick. And
Yes.
then be with him like 3 or 4 times out of a week. Um, he would use scripture to manipulate me to do what he wanted me to do. And again, a
Wow.
lot cannot say because of it, media. You can
Yeah.
find it in this book, and a lot
Right.
of women that is in ministry appreciate this this project because they're like, wow, I didn't even know, like,
Yeah.
really I went through
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
again, now that I have been married for 15 years, I tell people all the time, baby, listen, 2 months, you could have had him, but it's been 15 years. I will take my shoes off, grease up my face, baby, and we gonna go to town. I'm gonna fight
Yeah.
my guide, and he allows me to be myself, and he gives me the room to grow because he
That's great.
understands in some areas of my life I stopped growing.
Yeah.
I then I had a baby, and then I got
Yeah.
married time, and I was
Yeah.
pushed to the. So now it's more like he's like, you know what? I want you to figure out who you are. You have the time, you have the finances, do what you have to do. Take therapy, get into some hobbies.
Yeah.
It's been such a blessing. So I just wanted to give a shout out to my
That's
husband.
awesome.
I absolutely love
That's
my
awesome. That's
bringing.
awesome. That
Yeah,
is awesome. And as much as I watch TikTok, and I know you're on TikTok, Resilient 2.0, I just found you. So people should go check it out. But as much as I go on TikTok and I see women bashing men, like I want to do a series on a good man, like I'm always tempted to be like, listen, let me tell you who I married. And like, I know people are going to be trying to drag me for it, but I think it's so important, really, because it is true. There are good men out there, and we really don't have to be bashing men, and so I love that, and I want to say also, just to go back when you talked about the not having grown. I think, and my theory, I'm a social worker, like I said, I'm a counselor. So I feel like this theory is, I do have some kind of, I have some kind of, I guess, weight on proof a little bit, right? What
it
I've
works.
found is that the younger that women are, and I'm saying this to the parents that are listening, parents of girls or young women that might be listening or watching, the younger that you are when you become sexually active, it's actually it's a disservice to yourself, because you stop growing in a lot of ways, because now you're in a grown world. Now you think you're grown. So if you're 12 or 13, here you go with this grown up stuff that you're dealing with. So you're dealing with sex, you're dealing with emotions that you don't need to be dealing with at that age. You're in a grown up world. And if you have a boyfriend that's 5, 6, 7 years older than you definitely grown. So the growth that would have occurred with a protected 12-year-old child, because you might have, I raised a daughter, a daughter. My daughter's 30, and I have a 2-year-old daughter. And so having that girl protected, I had somebody always with her, supervision. I had a lot of stuff going on, because I have my thoughts about teenagers as well. I don't think that you need to leave them alone. They need to be watched, right? As much as you need to work with them, but still they need supervision, because that's a very tough age of their life. So I feel like it was natural that you would not have had that growth occur because of what you shared with us. And so that's why it's so important for us to understand that, to protect our young women, to protect our daughters, to protect our sons, even, because I had 2 sons, and my mother was like, let them be boys. And I'm like, that doesn't mean they must go out there and start doing crazy stuff so they can come in here and act like they're grown men and want to fight me. So I was protecting them so we could be all right, because I know if you're out there living a grown up life, you're going to come in there trying to say, who you talking to? And I'm like, wait, that's not going to work. And so now my grown sons are like, we're so glad you did that with us. We're so glad that you really kind of held us back from some stuff. And even though our friends were laughing at us or saying, oh, what's your mom, your mom's coming to get you. We're happy you did that. They're 30, 35, and 34 now. And they're like, amazing young men. They're fathers, they're husbands, they're educated, they're beautiful. And so I think, like, that's important. So when you shared that and you talked about the lack of growth, it's actually something that is real. And so the spaces that you're working in, you have this opportunity to really share so many things, right? Things that you probably didn't even know that you were going to be able to share. And so here you are. So please let us know where people can find you, the websites, and the book again is From Tragedy to Triumph. It's
It's
available on all platforms.
yeah,
So tell the audience.
yes, thank you. So it's called Triumph from Tragedy by Crystal Washington. It's on Amazon and a lot of local bookstores in the Bay Area in California. You can catch me on Facebook. It's a private Facebook page called Resilient Woman 2.0. You answer just a few questions, to keep the rules intact, because what we say in the room stays in the room. I'm here to really and to receive help. And I love it because we help one another. Another platform is Instagram and TikTok, both Resilient Woman 2.0. I do body butter, soaps, and scrubs. So for people that suffer with severe dry skin,
Okay.
eczema, marks, arthritis, you name it, you can go on the website www.purescrystal.net.
Okay, so I just went on the website and I saw like a price for an hour. Like, what is that you're doing during the hour with the soaps? Are you doing something like
Yeah,
what is it
so
that you're doing? A
yeah, so
demonstration or something?
I teach people how to make cold processed soaps, and because a lot of people want to get into
Okay,
it, build their own business, to get started. A lot of people think
nice,
a lot,
nice.
and you actually don't. You just have to learn how to make cold processed soap, which is really, really good soap, right? It's the purest
Oh
form of soap.
wow.
It's just oils and some ingredients. Like I tell you everything,
Okay.
but but
Awesome. Awesome. Listen, no, so Tiffany and I have been talking about doing a retreat in the Cayman Islands because that's where I am. And Crystal, you're gonna be on that plane coming over to teach these women how to do soaps and talk about your book and talk about your stuff. And you're definitely gonna be one of our retreat ladies. So it has been such a thrill. I'm going to join your group
thank you.
and encourage everybody who has been watching or listening to please, reach out, like, follow, share the Resilient Mother podcast. Obviously, also, Crystal, we're going to ask you to share with your audience as well, because iron sharpens iron type of thing. And let's get that big drum out and start making that noise, because there's lots of foolishness in the world and lots of negativity and lots of laughing over nothing. So
Mm,
I think that doing something good needs to be the thing.
I, I you all for having me. Phenomenal women. I mean, this is just the beginning for you guys. So I bless you guys. We're
Thank
going
you.
to, and I can't wait to come and visit y'all. Yes.
Thank you. That's amazing. Yes, Tiffany Lorraine Galloway has been doing this podcast now for I think 3 years. And so now we've just leveled up and we're just pulling more people onto the platform and talking about the stories. And we had beautiful guests before as well. So we just want to do that. We just want to create this amazing community so that we can kind of get out of our own way. We can help each other. We can grow from each other. We can learn from each other, because it's necessary for our children as we build better communities. And at the end of the day, I can. It's a resilient attitude. And you sure have shown that you can. And you're creating those spaces for women to know that they can. And resiliency is so important. So thank you so much for joining us on the Resilient Mother podcast. I am going to be joining your group, so you're going to hear from me more often, Miss Crystal, because it's been amazing meeting one of my twins, one of my world twins. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe so we can share this message. We are a worldwide podcast with guests all around the world, and we want to continue to grow this community. You can find us on socials. You could also be a guest. Look for that link below if you'd be interested in being a guest on the podcast. If you know a sponsor or would like to be a sponsor, please reach out to me or Catherine as well.
Sure. We want you all on this journey. We want to hear your stories. We want to share your stories. We want to gain strength from each other, because together we're stronger. And to never forget the blessing of being a mother and what we're creating. We're creating the future every single day of our lives. So get on this train with us and let's do this thing, moms.
I believe in you. Believe in yourself. God bless. And we'll see you around. Take care.